We are recording the interview of Cheryl Malone. This interview is being conducted by Jeremy Tack and Erica Carter from the Wright State University's Veteran Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at Wright State University in the New Media Incubator. It is 10:45 a.m. on the 8th of June, 2018. Cheryl, thank you for being here.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it. Let's get started with where and when were you born?
I was born in Southport, North Carolina on September 12th, 1963. I have a twin brother, so he and I were born same time, early in the morning.
Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My parents were Herman McCracken, who was a longshoreman and a carpenter, and Sandra McCracken, who was a teacher's aide.
Do you have any siblings?
Oh, I do. I have 6. There are 7 of us.
All right.
I have one who's a professional baseball player, now retired. We're pretty athletic. And then I have, let's see, there's Gwenny, James, Mark, Daryl and I, and Sandra D, and then Quentin.
All right. So, did you have any family members that served in the military besides yourself?
I do. I had 2 uncles who served in the Korean War, and then my brother, Mark, who was in the Air Force.
So, what year did you join the Air Force?
In 1985, right out of college.
Okay. And what were you doing before you joined the Air Force?
I was in college, and I was in the ROTC program. I started off when let me just tell you a story. I always knew I was going to go in the military. At first it was the Navy, because the Navy men were cute and their uniforms were cute. And then in 1979 I found out that the Navy was having problems with the women on the ship. So started looking a little closer at home. The Army, which we had Sunny Point, which is an Army terminal, and then there was Fort Bragg and Fayetteville. So I joined Junior Army, ROTC in high school, and started leaning toward the Army until I went to college at Methodist College in Fayetteville. And then I used to hang out on weekends at Fort Bragg with the Army guys, and they convinced me to go Air Force. So transferred from universities and went to the Air Force ROTC program at Pembroke.
What was the ROTC program like?
Oh, it was fun. Because I had ROTC, Army, I had pretty much the basics done. It was good, definitely a good opportunity to show leadership, and also just to learn what the Air Force was about. So that was a pretty good program, pretty easy program, but also challenging when I went to basic camp.
Was there any professors or teachers during that time that started?
Yes. One particular, Captain Swims. Captain Swims was my first professor of aerospace studies, and he was a neat guy. I remember at one point, I'm a nice person, and I don't mind helping people out, and I always have. And one day I was helping a couple of girls in our dorm. I was the RA, and I was going over and above to help them out. And he found out, I forget what I was doing, and he really just gave me he fussed me out. He said, "You're too nice, you need to get tougher, you this, you that." And I cried, but it was a turning point for me because I was nice, and I didn't mind going the extra mile, but I had to learn to say no. And Captain Swims helped me quite a bit to develop that tough side of me. I was athletic, but not always tough when it comes to dealing with people. So he really made a difference in my life.
What did your parents think about your decision to join the Air Force?
Pretty excited. They were pretty excited. They knew, again, at age 12, I knew I wanted to go in. And it was just a matter of time whether I went in right after high school or right after during college. But my parents had me set for college, but I had learned, because I knew about ROTC, I learned that many universities had an ROTC program. So they were excited. And I think they were pretty excited I went Air Force to follow Mark.
So when you finally graduated and got your commission, what was that feeling like?
Oh, it was great. It was great. In graduation, I was one of I think probably about 20 of us who had jobs. I had a job. I knew I was going to Hanscom Air Force Base in Massachusetts. I loved history, so that was ideal for me. I knew how much money I would work, and I knew I'd see the world. So it was pretty neat. And to go through the commissioning ceremony and have my parents put on my bars was pretty neat. So that was nice. So it was a great experience.
Did you go to any technical training afterwards?
I did, down to Biloxi.
Okay.
We went to personnel school, and my brother Mark was NCO, and he actually took me down to Biloxi to go to school. So we drove down to go to the personnel school, and he gave me a lot of insight regards to being a personnel officer, told me my do's and don'ts as an officer, made sure I treated the NCOs right, and I learned and didn't come in with a big head, as he said. So we went down to Biloxi.
So it was helpful having your brother kind of have that prior experience to kind of tell you what to.
It was very good.
What to expect, yeah. So what was your first duty station? You said Hanscom?
Hanscom in Massachusetts, outside of Boston.
And what was your job there?
I was in the CBO, the Consolidated Base Personnel Office, and I was a section chief. So when I walked in, just imagine this, I was a tiny southern girl with a southern accent going to Massachusetts, Northeast, and I was nice. And so I get to the CBO, as we called it, and I had 14 NCOs and airmen to be in charge of. And it was a little tough. I had some NCOs who gave me a hard time, but I had a wonderful NCO who was my right hand, Sergeant Richard DeCruz, and he took me under his wings. And he helped train me and made sure the rest of them didn't give me a hard time, because my voice was high, I was tiny, and I was a Southerner with an accent. So they thought, oh, we're going to get over her. And they did for a while, but Sergeant DeCruz rescued me and taught me how to be a good officer.
And how long were you there?
2.5 years.
2.5 years, okay. Was there any other life-changing moments during that time? Or?
There were. I was able to, because again, my whole family is athletic, and so I played softball and was able to get involved with the base softball team, female softball team, and played at the command level, but also at the Air Force level, representing the command. So that was neat. And then later I became the executive officer for the Chief of Staff, or what it was, ESD, which is the Electronic Systems Division. We had a 3-star, and we had then a 1-star, and then my colonel, who was the Chief of Staff, I became his exec officer. That was pretty neat. I learned to look at the Air Force from a broader perspective when it came to acquisition. I also had the privy, because I was an exec officer at the leadership level, had my own office, my own parking spot, and all those little privies lieutenants typically don't get. So that was significant, because I did get to look at acquisition, get to understand what the mission as a whole was, other than just learning personnel and being, doing the customer service and working the personnel program. So that was pretty neat. From that point, let me say there was one other one too. I was, my OIC in personnel, I think he was the director of personnel, used to chew me out quite a bit. I mean, I thought, again, I had one of the highest visible areas in personnel, that was promotions, evaluations, and retirement. And so it was really, really high vis. And if we didn't have the right stats, or if my team, we messed up somehow, he would call me in and just chew Lieutenant McCracken up. And at one point, after about the third chew up, I mean, he really would just get on my case. I showed the McCracken side of me, which was probably wasn't smart, but it did turn out well. I balled my fist and I was like, sir, yes, sir. And then he says, you know what? And after he let me cool off, he says, I was wondering just how much I could push you. He said, this was a test. And I told him I didn't like it, but it was a test. He said, I was just wondering how much you're going to let me push you. And he pushed me to the edge where I would display it. And he said, from that time on, he took me under his wing and he just cultured me. He taught me. He became a great mentor. And what I learned from it was that, it's okay to show some emotion. It's okay to say no. It's okay to have those limits, even as an officer, to your superiors, with a sir or ma'am behind it. But it was a good lesson learned for me. And from that point on, Colonel Burke, Thomas Burke, who was also significant in my career, really pushed me. I worked hard, played hard, and did outstanding work for the most part, and he really gave me opportunity. So I appreciate that. But it was sort of funny afterwards. It wasn't funny during the time, but afterwards it was funny, because it was a big lesson learned for me as a young officer.
During this time, or when you first joined, was there any challenges being a woman in the military?
I don't, no, not per se. Again, going back to being an athlete, it was always, because I'm small, you get out there and show what you can do. So I really didn't have any challenges. If I did have challenges, they were usually with other women. But as a whole, no. But I think that's also true for me, because I had rank. You come in as butter bar lieutenant, everybody's going to give you a little bit of a break, some are going to challenge you. But for the most part, I didn't have any challenges. It's just a matter of doing my job and doing it well.
So what was the next move for you after Hanscom?
From Hanscom, I was selected to go to the Military Personnel Center at Randolph Air Force Base, which is the mecca for personnel officers. And it was a good assignment. It was part of the OES, Officer Evaluation System program. It was the new system we were bringing on. And it was a great assignment. I was there 5 years, and I was the youngest personnel officer at the center. We were the sort of the mecca for personnel. You have the Pentagon, who does the policy, then you had MPC, now it's called the Air Force Personnel Center, who implemented the policy. And that was, again, a great opportunity for me to get involved with some of the bigger personnel programs, to get some of the additional duties that I got to represent the Air Force, and just to have fun, and also play softball again.
All right, so was there anybody that stood out to you then, or was there any mentors that you?
Yes. We had a team of, I think there were 32 of us, officers enlisted, because we brought on the new Air Force evaluation system. And I was the youngest on the officer side and the single one, so I had big brothers and big sisters, officers, a lot of NTOs to mentor me and help. We were a tight team of 32, because we were all very much selected to be on this team. The Chief of Staff, we worked somewhat under the Director of Personnel, but directly for the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. So that was pretty neat. But with that, we had General Billy Bowles was our MPC commander. He was a North Carolinian, so I thought I had an affiliation there, so that was neat. He was a countryman from North Carolina. And then we had Susan Pomerleau, General Pomerleau, come in as the Vice Commander of MPC, and that was she was the first female general officer. I think she was general at the time. She may have been a colonel, but on the track to be general, to come in. And she really helped the women officers for career progression, professional development, and personal growth. So she sort of took me under her wings. I remember I got the opportunity to brief her as a first lieutenant, and she was known to give these real firm handshakes. And I had my ring like this and didn't know it, and she squeezed my hand and it hurt, and a tear came down. But then I wiped it off real quickly and finished the briefing. But General Pomerleau, and she's been a mentor for me up until I retired. So Susan Pomerleau was definitely significant, as well as some of the officers on my peers on the evaluation program.
And how long were you stationed there?
I was stationed there 5 years.
Okay.
5 years. It was a life change for me, because I partied with the Army guys, met my husband there, and had my first child there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I got married there. And so MPC Randolph, San Antonio is definitely full of memories for me.
Did you deploy or anything during that time? Or?
No, I didn't. During that time, the Desert Storm occurred in '90, and so one of my additional duties at MPC was was working with the post office to get magazines to send to our troops. Okay. So I did that. I would go to the San Antonio post office, work with them in any magazines that weren't delivered. I'd box those up, bring them to the office, then ship them overseas to our troops. So I wasn't involved. That was pretty much one of my roles for that contingency, for that wartime. But other than that, we were on the personnel side. I was developing systems. So making sure we had evaluation reports. And making sure we flexed our policy to make sure those troops who were deployed had fair opportunity to get their evaluations, and make sure the boards had them. So a lot of policy stuff I got involved in, or implementing policy, but not being in the war per se.
Okay. So what was the next move after that then?
From Randolph, my husband at the time he had gone to Desert Storm, again, he's Army. He went to Desert Storm, and then they assigned him, it was Randolph. Where did Vic go? He was at Desert Storm, and then, did he come back? Yeah, I think he went to LA, because in the 5 years, he went to LA. And so I had to work assignments trying to get to Los Angeles. And after about 2 years working with the center, because we worked assignments, you know, in NPC, they had the assignment directorate, I was able to get to Los Angeles.
Okay.
So I went there to work senior officer management.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned your husband was Army.
Yes.
And he went to Desert Storm.
Yes.
What was that feeling like?
You know, because I wasn't scared because Vic is very, very good. He was, you know, very equipped. He was a medical service corps guy, officer. It was okay because you know, being in military, I understood what he would, you know, what he had to do, and so, and then at that point also, I think, I'm trying to remember if I had my daughter. No, she came later. I was there at the center. I was there. One of the things, another role I had at the center was the command post. Sometimes I would work that as an additional duty. So I wasn't scared, but it was, you know, I just prayed a lot, you know, and more so to make sure he was safe and he'd come home. But it wasn't as scary, perhaps, as some of the a spouse who was in active duty would be. So, but it's just a matter of getting them home, making sure they were equipped, just like we were doing for the Air Force troops. But again, he's Army, and I know Army takes care of their troops, and he knew what he was doing, and he was well equipped to be there. So I was excited to have him participate in the war.
Okay. So tell me about Los Angeles.
Los Angeles was fun. It was, I went over to work senior officer of management, and that was to work in all the colonels and generals. Frankly, I was just glad to get with my husband. You know, that we had been together, been separated for 2 years. And so that was the closest I could get to where he was assigned. And so it was a good assignment. I worked senior officer management, working all the colonels and generals assignments at LA Air Force Base. And then I moved over to work to become the military personnel flight chief. And that's, excuse me, taking care of all of the military programs on the base. And I think at that point we may have had 3,000 military. And so from that, just getting, again, more in depth with personnel programs, I was able to help develop some programs, help our troops. LA was a high cost area, and LA was still very dangerous. I mean, when I was there, it was the OJ issue was going on, and our troops, sometimes we'd say our troops would get lost into the Hollywood mindset, and so we had to be very structured in making sure our troops understood they were still Air Force, but also have some fun with being in LA. And so we would do some things within in Hollywood. We would have some of our troops go out and participate in events, and we'd have fun. So it was a good assignment. It was definitely a learning assignment for me, being in charge of the entire MPF.
Okay. So then I see that you went to Kunsan Air Force Base?
Yes, Wolfpack.
Tell me about that.
That was a great assignment. That was a great assignment in that it was so mission focused. I had been almost in the Air Force 10 years before I had gone overseas. You know, I've been pretty fortunate. Well, I'm not sure fortunate, however you want to look at it. But I had not gone overseas, and again, I had gotten married, just got with my husband. So Vic and I were trying to get to the next location, same base. And then NPC hit me with what we call a non-voluntary assignment. So they said, Malone, it's your time to go overseas, and you're going to Kunsan Air Force Base. Korea? I volunteered for that back in 1988. You know, I'm married now. I'm not sure I want to go to Korea, but they non-volunteered me to go. And after praying about it and talking with it, I went, and it was a hard decision. I had 10 years in. I was coming up for major. I had my daughter, who was, I think Megan was 2 at the time. Wasn't real happy about leaving my daughter and my husband. But after praying about it and then talking with the family, I went because it was really close. You know, at that 10-year mark, I'm going to 20, and I signed up to be a 20-year person. So I went and got to Kunsan, was the social actions chief, an area I did not want to work. So I wasn't real happy. But when I got there, I knew the mission. I decided, you know, just like any other officer, this is my turn to do my duty. So went over, gave it my best, ended up winning the Air Force Best Social Actions Office for 1997. Right. So my motto of working hard, playing hard, I did it. We did it as a team, and it proved valuable for me. I like Kunsan in that we were so mission-oriented, and that if the North Koreans were to come over, the DMZ, they would take out Seoul, and we would be the little bump in the road before they take the peninsula. But so we had lots of war games. I, initially didn't like the gas mask, but I learned how to put that gas mask on and jump in ditches and keep my M9. And so it was a learning experience. It was very mission focused. So again, I did all I needed to do for us being the best on the mission, and also had a lot of fun. I think I was the cheesecake baker, I was the counselor, I was the piano teacher, I was a traveler, and definitely the shopper in Korea. So I had fun. So it was a good assignment. But most importantly, getting the mission done and doing it very well for our troops and for the 8 Fighter Wing. So really proud of that assignment.
And how long were you there?
Oh, there for a year.
Okay.
For a year. So it was really high ops tempo, really fast. And working, a lot of exercise. It seems like every 4 weeks, every month we were in an exercise. And we had major exercises because, again, we were in South Korea. So, and we didn't play. Air Force didn't play. I mean, you better learn how to don that mask. So breathing, putting it up, trying to breathe, pretend you, didn't work. And, of course, I tried it. It didn't work. But so it was real world war, and as we would say in the Air Force, Korea at the time was the tip of the spear. So you either learned very quickly and did your job and did it well, or you were miserable. But we didn't play. But again, we worked hard, played hard, and I did.
And did you keep in contact fairly frequently with your family back home?
I did. Vic and I emailed. I think at the time, actually, Vic had just a month after I left, Vic retired. And which was good because now he could be there with Megan. Prior to that, before I left, he was traveling quite a bit, so he retired, and we would email each other quite a bit after the months of making phone calls and getting that $300-400 phone bill. We learned how to email real quickly. So yes, I did, and I contacted with my family in North Carolina, my parents first, so I was able to keep in contact with them. Letter writing was important, I know we have the email and stuff and all the good technology today, but back then, getting those letters in the mail was quite significant, it meant a lot. So we did a lot of letter writing and sending pictures of my baby and all that good stuff, so it was good. We kept in contact.
So after Kunsan, where did you go next?
From Kunsan, I went to the Pentagon. And that was good. I had, while at Kunsan, the Air Force Director of Personnel came over. How I got to Kunsan was a different story. That's for a different interview. But he came over, and I was able to give him a overview of what we did at Kunsan for our social actions. I had worked for General McGinty before, and being a personnel officer that I am, I said, look, my next progressive move is the Pentagon. I've done NPC, I've done this. My next step up is the Pentagon, and that's where I went. And that was good. At the Pentagon, I came in to work officer evaluation policy. When I was at NPC at Randolph, I worked the implementation of the new officer evaluation system. And then at the Pentagon, I worked the policy. And that was good because I was in what we call a very high visible office where we worked officer evaluation policy as well as promotions. And we worked directly with the DP and then, of course, the Chief of Staff and SecAF of the Air Force. So that was high pace, and that was a great assignment. Most folks don't like the Pentagon. Most officers don't. Again, a select group. I got in one of them. I was blessed to get into an office that was very hot, very hot for as ops tempo and high visible, and we were able to do some wonderful things. So it was good. I learned a lot at Pentagon.
And how long were you there? 2.5 years. Okay. And just for time frame, what years were these?
Pentagon was from 97 to 2000.
Okay.
2.5 years.
And then from the Pentagon, you went to Misawa?
Misawa,
All
yes.
Right.
Yes.
Misawa.
Misawa, from the Pentagon, I was selected to be a squadron commander.
Okay.
And I was trying to stay in the States. I just done Korea, didn't want to go back overseas. And I had just had my little boy. I was home on maternity leave, and I got the call, congratulations, Cheryl, you're going to Misawa. And I go, Misawa, Japan? Oh, thank you, ma'am. General Pomelo called me and said, congratulations, I'm going to Misawa. And I said, Vic, overseas again. We're going, at least this time we go as a family. So went overseas to Misawa Air Base, which I knew was northern Japan. You know, if anything, I could have gotten Okinawa, you know, on the island, or, you know, Yokota, right outside of Tokyo. But no, they sent me to Misawa, which was the snow country. But we went there and we loved it. Loved being a squadron commander. The day we arrived, the family arrived with Vic and I and the 2 kids. Vic was offered a job, so he was happy. He was well going to be employed in this remote sort of location. I love being a squadron commander. We worked hard and played hard. Went at a time where it was pretty turbulent in the personnel aspect. We were just going from one personnel data system and implement a new one, which didn't work nice. And I had been at the Pentagon, so I knew all that was happening, so I didn't worry about it. But when I came out in the field to be a squadron commander, hit me right in the face. I had to understand the MIL PDS system. We had the problems, and you know, I was at a fighter wing. I was at the 35th Fighter Wing, so you know, we got our jets, and we don't play. You're back in real world as opposed to being at the Pentagon. So I had to really learn to really fast being that squadron commander and fixing problems. Plus, at that point, we were starting the deployments. They had increased. So I had to jump on the bandwagon and making sure the personnel aspects of deployment that we had, we work with other squadron commanders, make sure their troops were in order as far as their personnel records and accountability. So wonderful assignment. I'm thankful I have a philosophy of work hard, play hard. I've worked my team. We worked together as a team, and we won. We were the best mission support squadron in PACAF for 2 consecutive years. So work hard, play hard, and I was able to start a lot of stuff with other squadron commanders. One of the things about personnel, everybody thinks they know personnel. You know, everybody wants to tell, even some of my fighter pilots. I remember telling one of them, when I tell you to fly that F-16, then we're evil. Otherwise, you don't tell me how to run personnel. I'm a tomboy to a certain extent. I like to play. I can bring on the rough side of Malone. And as a mission support squadron commander, at times I had to, particularly with our fighter guys. But once I did that, we were pretty cool. So for the most part, wonderful, wonderful assignment. I was there doing 9/11. One of my additional duties as a squadron commander doing 9/11 was being in our command post. And we had one lieutenant colonel here who was responsible for all the jets. And then I was Mad Dog 2. He was called Mad Dog, and I was called Mad Dog 2, call signs. And I was in charge of everything else. So during 9/11, my birthday is September the 12th, so in Japan we're a day ahead of you. And so I remember going home, just to share the story that's one of my most memorable times in the military. I remember going home and not fully pulling off my uniform yet. Vic was home with the kids, and probably about an hour or so later, I hadn't pulled off my BDUs. I got a call from my NTO saying, crying, look at the TV. And we saw where the plane went into the World Trade Center, and I immediately knew I had to get to the command post. So put back on my jacket, grabbed my gear, and ran to the command post. And got there, and of course we're ops, we're going. And I'm calling my troops, got my squadron set to do what they need to do as I'm in the command post. And after we get the generals there, the group commanders, and everybody's on the floor, we're to get these F-16s up. And I've got all the logistics, everybody else, personnel, as Mad Dog 2, I'm screaming, telling folks what to do, doing what we have to do. And about a couple of hours later, we get things going, our F-16s are in the air. General Utterback, Lord Utterback, pauses, and he says, you know, I know we're in the midst of this is real world, we're in the midst of war, but I'm going to pause and we're going to say happy birthday to Colonel Malone. And it makes me cry, so sorry about this. But at any rate, they paused to say happy birthday, and the whole group of them for that minute or so paused and said happy birthday, Colonel Malone. And then we put back on the gear and got those, made sure everybody else was doing their thing. So it reflects how the mission is important, but at Misawa, the family was, and that also reflects the good leadership of General Utterback. Despite all that we were doing, I mean, we're kick ass, we're going to fight, and we're going to win. Make sure our Weasels in there doing their part. He took time to say happy birthday and made sure everybody else. And then we went back to sitting, making sure everything else was done. So that's one of my most memorable times in the Air Force. So
pretty awesome. So you mentioned your call sign, Mad Dog 2.
Yes.
Is there a story behind that?
You know, I don't know. I like, okay, we can bring out the I can hang with that. I can do that. I don't. I think no, I don't know the story, but I know when we're when you have the general and the other 4 colonels behind you, and they're screaming, "Make this happen! Make this happen!" I'm screaming at my right side of the floor, and Mad Dog 1 screaming. So I think just in the action where there's so much going on, because, you know, I can't, I've got the LG guys here doing this, I've got transport, and I've got personnel, and everybody else, the medical folks was my responsibility. So we're just screaming. So after a while, it can get a little crazy, perhaps.
Yeah.
That's why they call us Mad Dog 1. And again, my sports fun side can come out. You know, I didn't like being screamed at, but hey, that's part of the, you know, as a commander, that's part of it, and I can scream. But we work together. The good thing about Misawa was that the mission was important, definitely. Most of the squadrons were the best in PACAF. And so definitely high ops tempo, great mission, and we did it and did it well, but we also played hard. And the family was very important. And I think under General Utterback's leadership, that was even more manifested than perhaps previous commanders.
And you said Weasels, who's F-16s?
That's our call sign. We're the Weasels. The 35th Fighter Wing is called the Wild Weasels.
Okay, and they were, was it
the F-16s are our aircraft.
Yeah.
So we're, you know, at Kumsan, we're known as the Wolf Pack. You know, that's our fighter wing. And for the 35th Fighter Wing, it's called the Weasels.
Okay.
And so, so as a whole, the 35th Fighter Wings, we're called the Weasels, and there's some history behind that.
And those were, I don't know if you remember, there was a suppression of enemy air defense mission, was it? Am I correct?
We went in, we were actually fighters. I mean,
Okay.
as far as our aircraft going over, we engaged.
Okay.
Okay. We engaged, our F-16s engaged in war.
Okay.
So we went out and we were actually, you know, combat.
Okay.
So we didn't do the close air support.
Awesome. And then from Misawa, Japan, you came to Wright-Patterson.
Yes, I did. After 2 years being a squadron commander, you know, it's usually the rotation. I was, unfortunately, at Misawa, I lost both my parents 6 months after each other. So that was, I think, as I reflect back, because it was such high ops tempo, I had my squadron and focused, and we had such unity for us, a wing and family being important. The wing sort of just came and just prayed with me as a whole, and just was there for me as I continued to run my squadron and do what we need to do. So I was trying to get to Maryland, someplace close to North Carolina, so I could be close to home. But my mentor from LA, General Lester Lyles, I called him up, so I said, I'm not going to play the NPC game. No, I just lost both my parents, and I want to get to North Carolina. And so between him and our Air Force DP, they were able to get me to Wright-Pat. That was the closest they could get me. There was not a slot for a lieutenant colonel personnel officer. And I wasn't really crazy about going to the Pentagon again. Didn't want to do 2 tours, the Pentagon. So I came here to where General Lyles was. He brought me in and worked here for 4 years.
Okay. And what year was that when you?
I got here in 2002.
Okay.
2002.
And so what was your mission set, your job here?
My job here, I worked at headquarters, again going back to officer evaluations. I was in charge of, actually in personnel, I was in charge of the military personnel programs. So I had not only the career enhancement areas, your promotions, and everything military I was in charge of. We had, I think, 3 or 4 divisions at headquarters, the command level. We had, in personnel, we had 3 or 4 divisions, And so we had my colonel, Colonel Molnar, who I'd known from NPC, and I worked for him. And then I had the branch of all military programs. So we were the only blue suiters at headquarters for personnel. So I had all the blue suiters under me to work the programs. And so those programs included assignments, promotions, evaluations, customer service programs, anything military fell under me as far as policy from the command.
And then how long were you stationed at Wright Pat?
I was there 4 years. Within those 4 years, I transferred. I think my reputation, for the most part, once I came in and did the personnel stuff, it was, if you have, Air Force had a new program, they sent Malone. So I changed. I think I had like 4 or 5 jobs before I left. I either started something new or, okay, you need this to happen, they sent Malone. So I was the branch chief of the military programs initially. Then I moved over to be the branch chief for workforce development when that first started. Then I did something else, IT. So I did a lot of the new programs that affected the military folks.
And then did you decide to retire from?
I did. After a while, I knew my family decided they didn't want to leave, and I was not going to be separated again. At this point, I had 2 kids, and I didn't want to be separated. I thought about it. When you have an opportunity to make colonel and had very good chances of making it, after talking with my family and my husband and kids, decided that we don't want to move. I decided, well, it's time to start working that transition job. So that didn't come through. I didn't get the ROTC position. Actually, here was at Wright State. I'd asked for that position whenever the 06 was going to retire, but he chose not to retire, so that vacancy left. And then they offered me Athens, OU, and I go, oh, no, I don't want to do that commute. And so I thought, well, at this point, I think NPC was going to send me someplace else because they were short of lieutenant colonel personnel officers. I go, no, it's time. And I was ready. So I retired. The family's here, and we've been here now for 16 years. So it's all, Wright Pat was good for me. It was good. Dayton, I tell the kids, it's a good thing I like Dayton in the area. So it's a good place to raise a family.
What was your proudest moment of your military service?
Gosh, I think probably, I guess there's so many of them. I would say when we were at Misawa, and I knew I had a good chance of making lieutenant colonel, but when it was announced, Vic and the kids Vic said, we did it. And that meant a lot to me. It wasn't you did it, we did it as a family. So I would say that was probably one of the proudest moments I've had in the military, when we came together as a family to make that promotion, because the family does sacrifice, and Vic had been supportive of my career as I had his when he was involved. He was in the Army, and to get to that point and make lieutenant colonel, and the kids, even though Sean could barely talk, and Megan, we just summed it up. We did it as a family. So I'd say that was the proudest moment.
And then since you've retired, what have I know you're involved with a women's group for veterans?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Okay. The part of I've done quite a bit since I've retired. I'll just give you a little more history. Work for Indiana Wesleyan University for 6 years after I retired. But going back prior to that, when I decided to retire, I was definitely thrilled, retired, but it was an adjustment. And I had been warned that there was going to be an adjustment when you retired, but I didn't know it was going to be so severe, It was, and I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm a personnel officer, I'm pretty resourceful, I'm a very resourceful force. It shouldn't be this, wasn't difficult other than finding a job, but it was the emotional, the mental aspect of leaving something you've been, part of for 20-some years. It was a little tougher than I thought. So, but after 4 months of searching for a job, I was blessed to get a job with Indiana Wesleyan. So I did that for 4 years as their regional director of admission. And that was fun because that allowed me, I like people. So I had a great opportunity to get out in the Dayton, Cincinnati community, and also Lexington, Kentucky, and Louisville to meet people and just get acquainted, getting more comfortable in the civilian community again. So did that for 6 years. and had the calling after meeting, having someone in the community asked me to talk to their son-in-law because he was an Army veteran who was sort of lost. He had just been on deployment, got out, and needed some help. And she knew me, so she asked me to talk with him. And I did, but I realized after talking with him, he had that, deer in the headlights look, just like I did and felt. And I just felt compelled to do something more. And after praying about it, thinking about it, and having that call, after I resigned from IWU, I think about a year or so later, to go out and start my own business to help troops with their transition. Because again, it's tough. I don't think they prepare us well enough, at least back then. I didn't know. I mean, they didn't talk about emotions. They didn't talk about mental. They talked about getting that resume done, and they talked about the VA, but all the other stuff, I must have been sleeping because I didn't hear it. And so, and I don't, being a psychology and counseling degree major, so they didn't address those issues, and that hit us in the face, and I saw it on this young man. So I started before I resigned, just started helping folks. I'm resourceful. I'm still connected to Right Pat. Let me help. So with that, as that built, I resigned and started my own business called Life Transition for Me, with the purpose of helping military members, military spouses transition well, get reconnected to the community. And in doing so, I connected with the Dayton VA and met Maritha Trask, who runs their women's clinic, and she had a goal or a duty to do outreach for women veterans. And me being me, I decided to call the state, and I found out they had a Women Veterans Advisory Group, so I joined it. I was appointed to join that. And so with their outreach tasking or duty and the VA, we started a local group here, and with the purpose of reaching women veterans, helping them with any issues they have, and just to pass that information from the VA, the state, and also locally in regards to what benefits they have or whatever resources they need. So that group it's been around for, I guess, now 7 years. And it's very vibrant. It's a wonderful group of women. We have fun. Again, the main purpose is to share information and to have that camaraderie. And I'm very blessed to have the women, but they're my best friends. So it's a good group, and we have a lot of fun. We have, again, that work hard, play hard philosophy. For me, work-wise works, and also for me on the personal and business-wise.
And then, obviously, did your career as a personnel officer benefited that group?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Resources, knowing, and knowing where to go. If I don't know, I know someone who can go, And I'm not bashful, so I don't mind knocking on the door and asking the question. I learned some years ago, it's amazing what you can get if you just ask the questions. People, for the most part, are kind. And if you ask the question, most folks will try to help you out. So I ask questions. And if not, I also, in my 21 years, learned you either follow, lead, or get out the way. And you make it happen or don't, or we'll create it. So, and those philosophy has worked well for me so far, as I learned to pull back a little bit. So with this group, we've got a lot of talent, a lot of stories, and we have a lot of fun, and we respect each other and share a lot. So it's it's probably the best women's group I've ever been involved in. So I'm very happy to be a part of it.
Erica, do you have any questions?
Do you keep in contact with any? You mentioned a lot of people that have specifically touched your life. So do you keep in contact with these people still?
Some of them I do, yes. I would say my mentors, General Laus and General Parmelo.
Are they still in?
They all retired. General Parmelo went on. She's retired and then went to live in San Antonio and was the first female sheriff of Bexar County.
Oh,
so she's done well. That would be General Parmelo. So she and I still keep in contact. And General Laus, when he retired right here from Right Pat, I think in 2003. And I continue to keep in contact with him again. He's a very close mentor and has been. So he's now the chairman of USAA. And so, but he was with me when I was at LA Air Force Base. And I sort of connected when he came in as I think it was a 2-star 2-star maybe when he came, maybe 3-star at LA. And I worked senior officer management, so I had to work closely with him and the 1-star. And then I worked additional duties, so he became a mentor and personally for me a friend as well.
Any of your subordinates keep
Yes.
in contact? So, okay.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Oh,
Wonderful.
yeah, definitely. I have one, Tiffany, and she was my administrator when I was the MPF chief in LA, and Tiffany would keep me straight. I mean, and my NCO for when I was a squadron commander at Misawa, actually the Orderly Room NCO, Lido, he's here at Wright Pat, and the other one in California, so we keep in contact. And
That's
I have
wonderful.
lots of friends. With me, it's all about a team. And so I got the rank. We got that. We got that. We got the rank. We got the shoulders. We got the arms. We got all that. But we work together as a team. So we keep in contact. And so yes, definitely, a lot of personal, long life friends there in the military.
Okay, so I have one more question. You were in charge of a lot of policies that were implemented and started, and you said you started some, you ended some. Which one to you made the biggest impact on the soldiers?
This one, we had was at Pentagon. We were high in our ops tempo. We were beginning to do sending a lot of folks out for deployment. And because I had worked evaluations before, I was sort of one of the experts on officer evaluation programs, we were having the problems with troops going over on these deployments and not having their performance documented. So General Regney asked me, Cheryl, I want you to think about this. What can we do to capture their performance? So I designed a form called the DER, the Deployment Evaluation Report. And I said, this is an easy evaluation report form to capture their performance. So when they come up for promotion, we know that Cheryl was at Kuwait, or she was at Afghanistan, whatever, and we have her performance documented. And once I polled the match comms to see if they would support that, because we already had temporary evaluation forms called LOEs, letters of evaluations, which were definitely a short form to give performance. And I said, no, this one's a little more detailed. It's specifically for deployment. And so, and the rules are different. So I polled the match comms, and they didn't support it. And we fought at the Pentagon versus just giving them a blanket policy you will implement. We wanted to get their buy-in. And so before I left, they still had not supported it. But after I left and got to Misawa, about a year into Misawa, I heard they were implementing the DER. So I think that was pretty significant because it's my little form that I developed, and they were implementing that. So I think that it meant a lot because it was mandatory. So troops going on deployments, that whether I'm shooting, whatever I'm doing, I need to take time and make sure that performance is documented. And so that helped them for promotion, but it also captured their wartime duty. And we weren't doing a good job of it until they implemented the DER.
Well,
So I think that was the most significant one.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Had fun, 21 years of fun.
What message would you like to leave for future generations that might be viewing this interview?
I'd like to highly encourage people to go in the military, and here's why. For me, other than the jokingly with the sailors being cute in their suits, that was part of it too. But it was a fact for me as a Christian, the values of the military at that time were similar to my Christian values, and I could travel, and I could also be patriotic. I could see the world, and I could meet people from different cultures. So I would say for anyone today, go do that. I can't think of anything better to do than serve your country, and also have the benefits of travel, have a system of values, a lot of dignity, a lot of opportunity for education, seeing the world, seeing a diverse world. So I would say definitely go out and explore, expand your horizon, and then plus it's unity. That flag, it gives you a deeper sense of patriotism, and you get to serve that flag. You get to stand for this U.S. of A. So I would encourage them to go do have your personal goals, but go out and serve the country. I enjoyed it. I can't think of a better place. I'm very blessed. I would do it all over again if I had to. So I highly encourage folks to go out and get unified and be patriotic and travel and explore. It's a lot, and grow up. It helps you grow up as well.
All right. Anything else?
I don't.
All right. Well, Cheryl, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your service.
You're
we appreciate
welcome.
it. That concludes the interview of Cheryl Malone.
Okay, thank you so much.